People always ask me the same thing. Frank, how do you do it? They think it was some grand magic trick. It wasn't. The secret to the greatest con in history is simple. It's all about the suit. You see, people don't see you, they see the uniform. They see the confidence. And if you smile like you own the bank, they'll practically give you the keys to the vault just for the privilege of knowing you. I was 16 when my world caught fire. My father was my hero, the kind of man who could charm the scales off a snake with a bottle of wine and a wink. But when the IRS breathed down his neck, the mansion vanished. The Cadillac was repossessed, and my mother decided she'd rather be with his friend than stay on a sinking ship. I was standing in a lawyer's office, forced to choose between them. I didn't choose. I ran. I ran with a $50 checkbook and a heart full of desperate optimism. At first, I was just a kid trying to stay afloat. I tried to cash a check at a bank, and the teller looked at me like I was a cockroach, cold, dismissive. Then, I saw them, a Pan Am flight crew walking out of the Commodore Hotel. It was like a movie. The pilots looked like gods, and the stewardesses were angels in blue. Everyone moved aside. Everyone smiled. That was my aha moment. In this world, you aren't who you're born as. You're whoever you say you are, provided you have the right hat. I didn't just play a pilot, I became one. I posed as a high school reporter to interview Pan Am executives, soaking up their jargon like a sponge. I forged a license, got my hands on a uniform, and suddenly, I wasn't a runaway kid anymore. I was Frank Taylor, co-pilot for Pan Am. I was deadheading across the globe, staying in 5-star hotels on the company's dime, and cashing payroll checks that I'd printed on a toy press. I was flying high, literally, and the view from 30,000 feet was a hell of a lot better than that cramped lawyer's office. But every high has a come down. Enter Carl Hennerty, a man who dressed like a funeral director and had the personality of a dry sponge. But he had the soul of a bloodhound. He caught me in a hotel room in Miami, and I was literally caught with my pants down. I didn't panic. I grabbed a bunch of wallet fillers, told him I was Secret Service, and walked right past him while he was busy looking at my evidence. By the time he realized he'd been played, I was halfway to the airport in a shiny new car. That was the night things changed. It was Christmas Eve. I was alone in a fancy suite with all the money in the world and nobody to talk to. So, I called Carl. I told myself I was gloating, but he knew better. He laughed at me through the phone. "Frank, you didn't call to brag," he said. "You called because you have no one else to call." It stung because it was the only honest thing anyone had said to me in years. I decided to switch gears. I became Dr. Connors, chief resident of a Georgia hospital. I learned medicine by watching Dr. Kildare on TV and nodding solemnly at nurses. That's where I met Brenda. She was fragile, sweet, and she looked at me like I was her whole world. For a second, I thought I could actually stop. I wanted to be the man she thought I was. I even sat for the Louisiana bar exam. And God help me, I actually passed it after 2 weeks of studying, just to impress her father. But you can't outrun the ink. At our engagement party, the house was surrounded. I saw Brenda through the window, crying, and I knew the fairy tale was over. I told her to meet me at the airport in 2 days. But when I got there, I saw the shadows moving in the terminal. Carl was there. He's always there. I fled to France, to my mother's birthplace, and set up a printing empire in a tiny village. I was churning out checks that were works of art, but the walls were closing in. When Carl finally found me in that dark, damp factory, he didn't even bring a gun. He just looked at me with this exhausted, fatherly pity and said, "Frank, the sky is falling. It's over." On the flight back to the States, he told me my father was dead. The man I did all this for to win back his life, his house, his pride was gone. I lost it. I kicked out the floor of the plane's toilet and vanished into the night as we landed. I ran to my mother's house, desperate for a home that didn't exist anymore. I looked through the window and saw her with a new husband and a little girl. I was a ghost watching a life I wasn't part of. I realized then that I'd stolen millions of dollars, but I couldn't buy a seat at that table. Prison was gray and slow, but Carl, being the persistent soul he is, kept coming back. He realized my talents for forgery were better than his entire department's training. He got me out on a work release program to catch other guys like me. But the lure of the sky was still there. I put on that pilot uniform one last time, ready to vanish forever. Carl caught me at the gate. He didn't grab my arm. He just said, "Go ahead, Frank. Nobody's chasing you." I stopped. The chase was the only thing that made me feel alive. Without the chase, I was just a kid in a costume. I turned around and went back to work. I've spent the last 30 years working with the FBI, becoming the world's leading expert on bank fraud. So, what's the takeaway? I spent years trying to be a doctor, a lawyer, a pilot, anyone but myself. I thought if I ran fast enough, the loneliness wouldn't catch up. But the truth is, the most difficult role I ever had to play wasn't the pilot. It was the honest man. Catch Me If You Can isn't a story about a crow. It's a story about a boy looking for his father. I learned that a real identity is worth more than a suitcase full of forged millions. And sometimes, the person who spends his life chasing you is the only one who actually knows who you are.